I'm lucky enough to have you here today because Diego, once again, is deep in the money, this time in the main event.
Yes, and he better win the $8 million.
Now, Chip had another very good run. You notice that Diego and Chip are in the money in the same tournaments every time?
Yeah, but this time it didn't work out the right way.
That happens, but Chip had a good run in the main event, and now Diego is taking the scoop to glory. But I am lucky to have Karina as my co-host today, and we're going to be speaking with 2005 main event champion, Joe Hachem. You're friends with him, right?
Of course.
He's an interesting guy.
He's a great guy.
Joe, it's now 2 years removed from your World Series championship. Last year, you were still riding the wave, but now you've gotten to settle down a little bit. What were your impressions this year of the World Series?
I couldn't believe how much the play has changed in 2 years. I really wasn't expecting it, you know, and I think a lot of the players weren't. Obviously, the online issues have reduced the numbers this year, and definitely reduced the number of internet qualifiers. However, we still had an increase overall in new players coming to the World Series, and I think that's what changed the play.
The main event, it was, I didn't recognize anyone at my table. You were telling me, tell us about the little survey you did.
Well, day one, I played all day at the feature table, and there was no one there who'd played the World Series before. Day two, I thought, okay, maybe I'll get myself a few players this time, just to mix it up, because the reality is you want weak players on your table, but you need a couple of good players to balance it out. Otherwise, you're taking the brunt of everything, you know. So day two, hey guys, how you going? Who's played the World Series before? One person, right, had played before. Who's paid to get in? Nobody had paid to get in. And two of them said they got the on-frequent player points from PokerStars, which is great for them. And I'm thinking to myself, how do I fight this? You know, it's that's what makes it more interesting.
How come I didn't get that table?
Did you have a tough table?
Yes, I had like Tuan and D at my table,
break.
and I was like, and another guy that I played for years, and I'm like, how come I know these people? But it's kind of good when you do know how a person plays too.
Look, you know, if we compare the World Series main event to the 5 Diamond, which is in December, I had 5 pros every day on my table.
Right.
And that was much better than
you think? I think sometimes it's good
with,
to know
with 8 people
you
who
don't know how to play.
I mean, one guy on my table didn't even know how to put his blind out. So that slowed up the game, you know. And like you're saying, you got a tough break getting those players, but I don't think it's a tough break, Karina, because there was probably a balance there between good and weak players.
Right, the crazies and the good players. So
I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah.
You know, I think the best poker I ever played in my life was at a World Poker Tour, and I had Eric Seidel directly on my left, and that made me focus. And you know, now there were some other newcomers as well, but there was that balance. So, and also when you have someone like yourself, who's a World Series of Poker main event champion, now you were saying you're the focus of the entire table, and that's not necessarily to your advantage.
Right.
If you want
not against everybody.
Right.
And plus,
3 or 4 I can handle.
8 or 9
you get
to
the
1.
people that like, I want to get you, like they want to beat the old World Series champion.
You know what? That was the case in 2006. This year, they only played me with the nuts.
Really?
That's a different problem.
Things change altogether. So now, I was able to get away with a lot more. But like, if you keep walking into the nuts, you go nowhere. And that was my problem on day 2. Is every time I entered a pot, someone would wake up with kings or aces.
Right.
You know, or
that's tough to.
And to just to give you an idea of, and I'm sure you understand this as well. On day 1, I played this pot with this guy, which I just still don't understand now. I raised pre-flop with 8-3 off.
Alright, so you're playing your normal solid game.
Yeah, so normal. Anyway, he calls out of the big blind reluctantly, right?
Okay.
It comes 2, 3, 6 on the flop. I've got middle pair.
Oh, you're golden.
Medium kicker. I'm thinking pretty good. Yeah. So he checks to me. I bet. That's my message. He checks to me. I bet. He raises me like another 150% of my bet. It doesn't not right. So I repop him. Now he smooth calls. There's 12,000 in the pot. Turn comes a 7. He bets 2,000 into me.
2,000 into a $12,000.
Yes, I saw a lot of that at this World Series, by the way.
Now I know he's got 4-5. He has to have 4-5 because he just doesn't know what to do with it. So he's just betting 2,000. He's thinking the 2,000 is milking me.
Right.
You know. So I fold my hand. He shows me 4-5.
I saw a lot
crazy.
of that, like
Just crazy.
$15,000 pots, and people would bet 500.
Well, that's always it's either A or B, and you have to determine which it is because a lot of times that's a super weak post oak bet, and you could just raise it no matter what your cards are and win.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you have to be able to recognize when it's a guy who's also doing that with the nuts.
Mate, I just thought...
Normally, it's not the guy with the nut.
Yeah, normally it's a guy who's
Well, on the
just...
internet,
trying to-
100% of the time,
Yeah.
it's a guy who's weak.
Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, 100% of the time. But I could see it in his eyes that he just was so scared. He didn't want to play the pot with me in the first place. Now he's got the nuts, and he's scared as to how much money can I make
Right.
out of him, you know?
Right.
If he made a healthier bet, you might have.
He may have got more out of me,
Yeah.
you know?
So now we're going into like 200 players down to the World Series. What were you thinking 2 years ago when you were down to the 200 players?
Actually, I have a funny story about that. Day 4, I rocked up and sat at my table, and 7 of the other 8 guys all went to their back pocket and pulled out a sheet of paper and started looking at, if I wait another, 10 spots, I want to get
Looking at their payout,
and
right?
and I said, right. And I didn't have many chips at this stage. I was probably a little bit under average. So
And you didn't look at the payout sheet yet?
no, I couldn't. At that point, I couldn't care less. I knew that 27 paid 400,000 and the final table paid $1 million.
Right.
Other than that,
Right.
the difference
You knew
between
the
5 and
general.
10,000.
What else do you need to know? Right.
Right.
I mean,
You were there to play.
yeah. And I was kind of like, I'd had such a good trip already because I final tabled the first event that I played. I'd done well in the cash. I was free rolling for the whole event.
Right.
And I've made the money now, and let's get on with the game and play. So that was really big for me when I saw these guys were concerned about the jumps.
Right, right.
So I just kept on hammering them all day, and I actually, that was my major move day in chips. I went from like 250 to 800,000.
So what would you what would be your advice to somebody that's left in the tournament now for getting down and getting dirty?
Well, if you're the guy who's got, say, 1.2 or 900,000, you need to protect your chips. Keep the pot small. A lot of these guys are going to have brain explosions and get all their chips in there with top pair because they're probably exhausted by now or getting exhausted.
Right.
This is the Twilight Zone portion of the tournament where people's minds start to play tricks on them.
Yeah, and someone described it to me really interestingly 2 years ago. They said, at this point, from here on in, people on a subconscious level want to be gone.
To relieve
Yeah.
the anxiety will be over.
Yeah,
Right.
they want to be gone. So they will make, a bad call or a bad play, and they'll bust out of the tournament, and they'll actually feel relieved that they've done
Right. I believe that. I believe that to be true.
Joe, one of the most notable things about you to me is that you followed up your main event championship with a small tournament at the Bellagio last year, $2.2 million for first place. Did you feel you needed to do that to validate yourself, or?
I was feeling sick in the stomach, right? Because right after the World Series at the Bally Circuit event, I got crippled by Keto Fan with a, incredibly bad play.
The Jack 10.
The Jack 10.
Yes.
And I was chip leader at that point. In my eyes, the tournament was mine.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing the best. I was the most solid out of, as in making mistakes. And that crippled me. Then I come back to the World Series, and the second or third event that I played was the event with Dutch Boyd, the short-handed. I get the heads up. I've got him exactly where I want him. He catches a 5 on the river. A few tournaments later, I'm at the final table with John Gale. We're in the pot limit hold'em. I beg him not to call on the turn when I move all in because I know he's going to suck out on me. I said, don't call. I don't want you to call. He's got bottom pair with an ace. He calls, spikes an ace. I had top pair. So by the time the 5 diamond came, I'm thinking, I really want to win. I'm getting close. I want to lock it up again. And you guys understand what it's like. A win is so different to coming second or third.
Of course.
It's like worlds away.
It's not even the money at that point.
No, it's the win. Yeah.
Right.
I felt after I left the 2006 World Series that I had worked hard enough to establish myself as this guy didn't get lucky last year.
You proved that you're not a one-hit wonder, but you
Right.
still want that big win.
That big win. And, how fortunate am I that it was the 5 diamond, which is one of the most prestigious tournaments.
$15,000
Yeah,
buy-in.
and all the best players in the world are playing.
Right.
Right.
That's
Now,
no joke.
Yeah, we can win a tournament, but to win that one as a backup to the World Series,
Right. So
Yeah.
people are not just saying, "Oh, that Joe Hachem, he's just a lucky guy."
yeah, well, that was important to me too.
Of course.
And totally from my point, I understand. Prior to coming to the United States, who'd heard of Joe Hachem?
I hadn't.
Nobody.
Yeah.
I'd never come here before.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And the tournaments in Australia aren't like they're touted over here as
No.
Right.
you know.
We don't hear about it.
Exactly. Except now the Aussie
The Aussie
Millions is
Millions,
being
right,
talked
right.
about. So, and I totally understand that the pros who are here and the poker followers. Okay, good luck to him. He seems like a nice guy. You know, he won. Good for you. But
Right.
what's he made of?
Right.
That Five Diamond is it's definitely one of the 3 to 5 most prestigious tournaments of the year.
Yeah.
And do you know that you're the number 2 guy on the all-time tournament money list now?
Yeah, I do. This is behind Jamie. Yeah?
Yeah. Jamie has 12 million and, plus a little bit, and you've got over 10 million. That's super impressive. And that was $2.2 million at that Bellagio. That's not chicken feed.
I mean, look, in every aspect that you look at it, I feel blessed that I've been able to perform at 2 of the biggest tournaments in the world. How can anybody not want to have done that?
Do you ever want to get away from the spotlight and the attention? Do you feel exhausted at any point and think, I'm just going to go?
Yeah, I mean, because you're
Island?
kind of like the Australian guy for poker. Like, everybody looks at you as like kind of the, the person of Australia, the poker of Australia, and now you're like this big figurehead and promoting yourself. And
I've been working hard for 2 years, and I think I'm going to continue to work hard for the next 5 years. You make hay whilst the sun is shining. I'm at a point now where I need to manage my time better. I'm the sort of guy that doesn't say no to people.
Here you are with us.
Yeah. They want to stop me. They want to have a chat.
Right.
I think I'm probably one of the only poker players that random guys feel comfortable walking up to and telling a bad beat story.
That could be a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
Random. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't necessarily want
that
to hear it.
doesn't mean go up and
Well, no, because you
tell them your
project
bad
a very
beat story.
personable image,
Yeah,
and so they think
and
they know you.
They feel comfortable.
Right.
A lot of the guys, that, as we know, have that border up where people don't even feel comfortable approaching them.
You're not going to go to
Which-
Phil
which-
Ivey.
I agree.
Which I think is wrong. Personally.
I think it
Well,
depends on who you are. I mean,
yeah,
it would be
mean-
unnatural for you because you are a friendly guy. But Phil Ivey is always a bit distant.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, but that's exactly right.
Yeah, but if all these pros stopped and talked to every person, they would just never get to their seat. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to think of it as a balance too.
Oh, absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. Is I think I'm probably at the other end of the spectrum where I'm too easy to
Right,
I stop
too
all the
approachable.
time.
You're too accommodating.
Right.
Yeah, too accommodating is the word.
So let's stop the. No.
Yeah. No, it's just that it's up to me to manage myself better. And also when I'm at the World Series next year, I'll be saying, right, for interviews and stuff, these are the times that I have free. Book people into these slots, and don't talk to me outside of that.
Right.
Just so that I've got time, because I feel
You have to.
Yeah, as I was saying to you before, I think this is the first major tournament that I've ever played where I mentally gave up. And I'm tough as nails mentally. I can, if at the Aussie meetings this year, I nursed a short stack for 4 days, not for 9 hours, for 4 days. And I know I can do it. So I come into day 2 of the World Series this year. I have 35,000 under average, but plenty of play. And I play like every hand for the first hour.
And that's what I thought too was really good about the World Series this year is that you had plenty of play. Even though you had like 10,000 in chips, you still had a chance to survive.
Yeah. The blinds were, after the first 4 levels, I thought the blind structure was incredibly
Really
good.
good. Mm-hmm.
First 4 levels, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that they get some action happening first,
Right.
and then they slow it down as
That's
play
fine.
progresses, rather than the other way around where you've got plenty of play when it doesn't count.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah, and that's
That's one of the problems with some World Poker Tour
Yeah.
stops.
After I busted out of the tournament, which was another crazy thing, I can't believe what happened, but I thought to myself, you did not get unlucky, you did not get your money in with the best hand, you just
Gave up.
gave up. You were playing too many pots. The last hand that I played, and this relates back to, remember I said to you about the guy who bet 2,000 to 12,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'd ran to kings and aces and the nuts, like within 4 hands. And now I decide to raise under the gun with ace-8 off. Because I know mentally that none of these guys are playing back at me without the nuts. Unless they pick up a really big hand, they're not even going to call.
Right.
Right.
So I'm using that I'm trying to use that to my advantage. So this is fate. The small blind calls, the big blind calls. The flop comes ace 10-10. And there's only like 7,000 in the pot. this is how tired. I didn't realise this happened until after. The small blind checks. The big blind bets 12,500. What does it...
Why?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing, obviously. But I move myself all in, right, which he has to call.
Right.
Right? The small blind has jacks, he folds. So I keep on running into hands, and the big blind has ace-queen. And he nearly folded because he thought I had ace-king.
Wow.
He goes, I know you've got the king, but, you know...
That's such a weird way to play that.
He leads 12,500 into a $7,000 pot.
I know.
Sometimes when guys don't really know what they're doing, it becomes super tricky because now you're putting thoughts into their head
That don't belong there.
right. And they don't have any
That's
thoughts.
the most problem with both poker players. They're always projecting their feelings upon somebody else.
Well, you know, I think one of the important things that we have to differentiate is, can this player think on the level that I play? Then okay, then I should think on his level. And I knew this guy couldn't. So what was I doing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It was my fault.
Yeah.
Right.
He's just playing his game, and that's what he knows.
What can you beat if
yeah,
he's betting?
Yeah,
What can you
I'm
beat?
taking the responsibility for it.
Right.
So I convinced myself that he had ace-4. Why? Because that's the hand I could beat.
I love when players do that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
That's the oldest
Putting
story,
people
you know.
on hands that you could beat.
Yeah.
You put the guy on ace-king, and now the flop comes with a king, and now you put him on ace-queen.
Because I can beat ace-king.
So are you going to take a rest now and go home for a while?
I wish I could say that. I'm flying off to Vancouver tomorrow. We're filming a series of commercials for PokerStars. Then I fly back into Sydney from Vancouver. You know, I live in Melbourne, right? And we're launching... I just signed a deal with Wild Turkey Australia. Wild Turkey's a bourbon. I don't know whether you guys have it here or not.
Yeah, we do.
And they're launching that in Sydney. And then fly back to Melbourne. And on Monday, I've got this little bit role in a upcoming movie in Australian horror movie.
Cool.
But hey, I'm a hotel clerk playing poker online. When they interrupt me and I crack it at them.
Oh, that is funny.
So it's just a little role.
Good for you.
And then end of August, so straight after that, the Victorian Championship start. It's going to be a lot of fun actually. They've turned the main event into a $3,000 mini Aussie Millions, so you get 20k start bank, 1 hour levels.
Wow.
That's in August?
Yeah.
You know, what I noticed going to the Aussie Millions is Australians is a totally different, like they play totally different, and they love to show their hands to other players, which I was like, wow, they just love to give us information.
So much information, yeah.
It was amazing, and they were so friendly, and like, you know, they beat each other out of hands, and then they joke about it with them right at the table. I mean,
there's a lot of ribbing, you know.
Yeah.
Do you guys use that expression, ribbing?
No.
Yeah. No. Yes, we do.
Ribbing?
Yeah, teasing.
Yeah, teasing.
Oh, teasing. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of like.
Maybe you don't, Karina.
What's
there's a lot of
ribbing?
like ribbing, you know.
Right.
But something that you may have noticed when you were there, and I know for a fact that poker is not as mature in Australia as it is in the United States,
absolutely.
which is why these guys are showing their cards and
Right.
and
And
they want to show the bluff. And
You know, it was so funny. We were laughing because they came out and they had this big show before the tournament started. There was like dancers and singers, and they
Really?
brought out Leighton Hewitt as the centerpiece.
All right,
and you
I'll
were
be
like,
going to the next Aussie.
I
I'll be
was
coming
like,
in
are we
January.
at a poker tournament or a?
well, this year we had on stage was Shannon Elizabeth Shane Warne, who's a famous Australian cricketer.
Bowler?
Yeah,
Spinner?
Yeah, spinner. That's it.
Wow.
Mark Philippoussis, who'd know from tennis.
Yes.
Right.
I was there, and I think there was someone else there, and they did the whole.
You
show
know what?
again.
For
it's a
anybody that
spectacle.
haven't gone to the Aussie Millions, it is a great tournament. It's so much fun. It's great to be there, and it's during the Tennis Open.
Yeah, it's great.
The Australian Open, and you see all the tennis stars, Serena and Venus.
That time of year in Melbourne is like the best because it's summer.
Melbourne's
Right.
a beautiful
and
city.
Melbourne's
It
a
is.
beautiful city. And the tournament itself, I think, is the best structure in
The
the world.
structure was really good.
Now, Joe, are you an Aussie rules football man?
Yes, sir.
Familiar with the? That's the.
Yes, sir.
And then now, what about state of origin rugby? You follow that?
No, because Victoria doesn't really follow rugby that much. New South Wales does.
Yeah, they're crazy about it.
Yeah, they're really crazy. I don't really follow it that much.
The next time we do this, I'll tell you about the time I went to an Aussie rules football match, and then after the match, we went on the field, and they were kicking the footballs around, and I caught one, and I kicked it, and I shanked it right off a guy's head, like 2 feet away from me. But the Australians have a good attitude about that kind of thing. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Get some rest if you can.
I'll certainly-
Aussie.
All right.